Hey everybody, welcome back to Bible Fun with the Duns. Today we're in 1 Chronicles chapter number 28, so let's get started.
Okay, so when we read through this chapter, a couple of things that jumped out to me were that how very similar this chapter sounded to, do you remember when Moses was commissioning Joshua to take over leadership of the Israelites and take them into the promised land? For me, that chapter toward the end of Deuteronomy and the beginning of the book of Joshua, really as Joshua was remembering that, it sounds a whole lot like that. In that, Joshua was about to begin a project. Now, Joshua is about to begin the conquest, where Solomon is about to begin construction. The other thing is, basically, they're the same message. Moses is telling Joshua that their success inside the promised land isn't going to be by the force of their own armies or the victory of their own sword. It's going to come from the Lord. But in order to come from the Lord, they were going to have to be obedient to His commands. Then he's going to switch over and he's going to talk about fear. Joshua 1:9, Joshua was remembering this. Remember, he's to do not be afraid nor be discouraged. Be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. That's a lot of the same imagery. As a matter of fact, when I read through this, I couldn't help but wonder if maybe old man David, who's about to die, is looking back in Scripture and reading the law. I know a lot of people that have been about to meet the Lord, and so they've gotten in His Word. So David's getting old. And so I wonder, was he reading the final chapters of Moses' life and he goes, this is what I got to be passing on? And that's just kind of my initial thoughts. What did you get out of this chapter?
Okay, so verse number 10 stuck out to me. It says, realize now that the Lord has chosen you to build a house for the sanctuary. Be strong and do it. Okay, so David, he's obviously a really big mentor and teacher in Solomon's life because he's his father, he's the king, and he's also like a really big spiritual leader in Israel. So David, he's kind of passing on this information to Solomon, like Dad was saying, and he's mentoring him and guiding him in the Lord's will. And so David, he has like a lot of experience with this because he was called to be king at a very young age, and he had to defeat like a freaking giant. And he was also like really gifted in war, so I'm sure he faced many more challenges that were like above him. And so he's kind of, I don't know, empathizing or sympathizing. I don't know the difference between the two.
Gotcha.
With Solomon. In this, because Solomon, obviously he feels, he knows Solomon feels like low for the task.
Like inadequate?
Inadequate, that's a good word.
That's a good word.
So Solomon feels inadequate for this task, and David's telling him the Lord chose him for this reason, and so he's got to get up, man up, and do it.
That's right. You know, I went through, and in my Bible, I put a square around every time I saw the word chosen in this chapter. So it's everything that God chose David out of his family, and God chose the family of David, and God chose Solomon, and God chose, so all of this. So remember these kind of covenant promises to David is that David would have a son, and there would be one of his sons would sit on the throne of Israel forever and ever and ever. And so David is overwhelmed by this. As a matter of fact, we remember back, David basically is given a recounting in verses 2 through 8 of this. It's basically the story of chapter 17 about David wanted to build the temple. God said no, but Solomon's going to do it. But God said, listen, I know you're sad about this, but let me tell you what I've got planned in the future. And ultimately, he's telling David that the Messiah is going to come from his line. Well, whenever this whole process begins to unfold, now we're getting a glimpse of what God's bigger plan is. By the way, this is not David's kingdom that will endure forever. If David was chosen and the people were chosen and the place was chosen and the line was chosen, well, the chooser is the one that owns it. So this isn't David's kingdom forever. This is God's kingdom forever. That's what I really liked about this. And so Solomon's strength was going to be in his dependence on God, because God was going to have to keep doing all of this. And I can't help but think about what it must have been like for Ezra to write these things down for the exiles who'd returned and were rebuilding their society, what they needed to hear over this. how David's last words could have been such an encouragement to Ezra's people to be strong and of good courage, to do not fear or be dismayed, for the Lord my God is with you forever. He will not leave you nor forsake you. And so for them to hear, David may be gone, but God is not gone. And what God has promised through David and to David, God will keep to those who follow. And so when we read through this story, we're understanding David was encouraging Solomon, but now the story is encouraging Ezra and his people. And now that we're reading, it's encouraging us. And this is passing the torch of God's faithfulness down through the line and telling us we too can be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid nor be dismayed, for the Lord our God is with us wherever we go, and He will not leave us nor forsake us. And that's one of my favorite truths and promises in the Bible. And I think this is what we pass down. I love the fact that this is what a father chose to be his last words to pass down to his sons. This is what he wanted his boys to know. I like that. All right, we hope you enjoyed the chapter. Let's finish up the book tomorrow. We'll see you then. Bye.